Every 30 seconds, a child is trafficked somewhere in the world. Let that sink in for a second. Because as fathers, it's not enough just to protect our own kids. We're called to be protectors of all children, and I don't care if they're ours or not. And today, we're talking with a man who has rescued thousands from that nightmare. And he is here today to show us how fatherhood is the most powerful weapon in this fight. And men, today we're going to have a conversation that hits right at the heart of what it means to be a father. Clay, it is so good to have you on today, my friend. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, that's a great intro. I don't know if I can live up to that at all. I want to meet that guy too. Holy cow.
Well, if you know him, can you invite him to the podcast? Because
Sounds good.
Well, hey, first of all, I have to just ask this beautiful, beautiful painting you have in the background. It
Yeah.
caught my attention right away. And for those of you guys who are viewing us on YouTube, if you're not viewing us on YouTube, go view us on YouTube. And if you absolutely need a link for our YouTube link, go to thedadedge.com/1393. You can jump onto our YouTube channel. But what is this painting behind you, Clay?
Yeah, one of our donors, we're a Christian organization, and you can be motivated for a lot of reasons to jump into the issue of fighting trafficking. You can be motivated from an anger, from a righteous justice, and all those things are natural. But I think the thing that will keep you going long term is a sacrificial love to see young girls thriving. And so one of the things that really fuels us is the example of Jesus. He was a sacrificial leader. He laid his life down for those that are hurting. And I think that model is what fuels us as an organization. So one of our donors painted this for us, and we have it in our office. And so we love it. So I thought that'd be a good background.
I love that background. And then there's one other thing I have to ask, because it's just the curiosity is killing me. Who do people say you look like? You look like somebody famous. I don't know who it is, but
Yeah, just a ton of handsome people and rugged handsome people. There's kind of too many to know. I don't know. There's a couple UFC fighters that people say I look like, and so as long as there's a handsome person, I'll take it.
Oh my gosh, man, I hear you. I love when people are like, you look like somebody. I'm like, well, if they're not good looking, don't tell me who it is. But if they're very attractive, then I'll take it. But I do love that painting, man. But I have to ask you, like, what even got you involved in this work? And you're not the only person that I've interviewed who's doing this work. And one of the questions that I ask, it's not like, you're in your second grade class and, Mrs. Smith is asking everybody what do you want to be when they grow up? And, Clay raises his hand and says he wants to save 2,000 children from human trafficking. Like, I can't imagine that was the dream, but how did you get involved with this?
Yeah, I know you talk a lot about the value of mentors in your life and people older than you that have kind of gone before you and getting wisdom. But I had some really great mentors in my life. One was a guy named Don Silber, and I knew I wanted to change the world. There was something in me that wanted to help people. And I went to him when I was around 18, 19 years old, and I said, what should I do with this? And he had really powerful advice for me. He said, you're young, you're not married, and you don't have kids. You should be trying to do the riskiest thing for Jesus you can find to do. Because he says at some point, you're going to have kids and a family and a mortgage and all these things, and that will frame and shape what you are viewing as potential opportunities. But he said, you're in a season of life right now that you can almost do anything. So I'd be looking to find the riskiest opportunities to do that feel like it can change the world. And as I looked out, there was this upstart ministry that had just been going for a year at that time. This is about 2006, called Agape International Missions. And they were wanting to stop trafficking in Southeast Asia. And I thought, that sounds like an opportunity for a young, dumb, single person. And so I said, I'd like to volunteer. And I gave him 3 months. I said, can I just volunteer for 3 months and see how this works out? But the interesting thing about getting involved in this issue is it gets under your skin in a couple ways. The heaviness of it gets under your skin, and it's hard to say, well, when do I turn away from this work? When do I say I've done enough of this work, or I'm satisfied engaging in this? And then it also gets under your skin in a way where when you have impact in a life and death type of scenario and a life and death type of way, it's the most cool, addicting thing that you could use your life, your time, your energy, your gifts, your talents, and it can actually make a life or death difference in someone's life. And so I think that 3 month commitment turned into, I think I'm sitting here 19 years later. I never found the right time to say, it's time to stop. It's time to move on to something else.
Well, it's almost like how could you? You know,
Yeah.
it's got to be like how hard is that? But at the same time, like um you have to see horrific things. I mean, I've had Hutchinson on the podcast and a few other people doing this work, and I know some of the things that you guys see are horrific. You know, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing, and even the conversations, like when you're undercover and some of the things that are said, you're like, I can't believe I just heard that from another human being.
Yeah, I would say the first couple of years, you kind of figure out if you can hang with it or not. I talked to a counselor because at one point, in my first couple of years, my hair was starting to fall out. Not the normal hair that, as you're just getting older, but, like there was like this stress induced something or other. And I was talking to a counselor, and he said, you will either develop the right amount of calluses, enough calluses that you can continue to do the work, but the goal is to not develop so many calluses that you don't feel anymore. You don't have compassion and empathy for the work. And he said, I can't tell you if you're going to find that equilibrium or not. And by God's grace, I think I found that equilibrium of being able to deal with the horrific nature of it, but at the same time, being able to digest that and continue to move forward. I will say practically, though, the thing that keeps me moving forward is actually success. If we weren't seeing success, I wouldn't be in this. If I was just hitting roadblock after roadblock, um, but having done this for so many years, some of the things that keep me going is getting a wedding invitation from girls that were rescued, 8 years prior, hearing about baby announcements from girls that were rescued. And when they came in, you thought, I don't even know that this life could be salvageable, but now they're married, they're having kids, they have a productive life. Those are the things. I think even as I share today, you'll hear there's not as much heaviness in my voice. There's more of an optimism the longer I've done this because I have this built-in encouragement of just seeing families, weddings and families and babies being born. And that's the stuff that's like, man, every time I see that, that keeps me going.
I can definitely understand that. How is this? How is fatherhood personally shaped, or I would say reshaped, the way you fight against this fight?
So even though this issue is deeply important, I need to personally keep my priorities straight. My priorities is number one. My personal priorities is number one is to be a child of God and my identity to flow out of that. My second is to be a great husband, and third is to be a great father. And out of those three things, I think the fourth one, I can make a pretty good CEO of an organization, but I need to keep those priorities straight. And when my wife, she's a Harvard Law, she's a genius. She helps me fight trafficking. She's way smarter than me. She's totally in this fight. She's awesome. And so when we got married, to me, I felt like I got better at fighting trafficking because I had this partnership that we could work together. But when I had kids, I had this nervousness of like, this means I have to slow down deeply. Like I have to disengage from this fight. And what I've realized as I've tried to prioritize our family and how we serve is that fear that this would cause me to slow down or to be less effective in that fight hasn't been true. We have homes for rescued girls or high security, non-disclosed location for rescued girls. And now when I walk into those homes, I walk in with my family and with my daughters in tow. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I thought this would slow down the ministry, but it has humanized me both to our staff and to the girls we serve in a way that has allowed me to serve the girls that have been rescued in a different way. I'm not just a scary guy that they don't know walking in. I'm a father, and they're watching me as I interact with my own daughters, and seeing that I'm a safe person. Um, and I think the other thing that I've realized is modeling what it is to be a father and a man to young ladies that have gone through the most horrific stuff is probably one of the most beautiful things I could do. How I treat my wife in front of the girls that we serve and have been rescued, how I treat my children. Um, I think that makes a bigger impact, and I've seen more impact from that. And so my fear that having children would slow down my work and my ministry that has been a false fear, and in fact, it's enriched it in amazing ways.
I really gotta really just have to pause here and just say how I'm so appreciative of the fact that number one, that you can do this work, because I know a lot of people can't do this work. And I love the fact that you take so much pride in it,
Mm,
and the fact that you have a and I'm sure not every day is easy with the things that
mm,
you see and hear, but doing this work as long as you have for 19 years, um, I'm glad that there's somebody out there like yourself doing it, and for the reasons that you're talking about. So just thank you for that work. Um, I have to ask this question as well.
mm,
You've rescued over 2,000 survivors, and you've helped arrest hundreds of traffickers. And I mean, that's huge. That is huge. And but I'm so curious. I mean, leadership, I think, for a man, right? For a husband looks a certain way. I think leadership as a dad looks a certain way. I think a person who's running a man who's running his own business or organization, that leadership probably looks a certain way. This particular situation, though, leadership in your environment, the stakes are very, very different. This is life and death, and this is a very dark world. What leadership skills do you think are most important that you have, that you think are most effective with the work that you do?
mm. That's a really good question. Um, I'm going to say humility. Um, and I'm going to say it in a few ways because I mean, even the way you did a wonderful job priming that question. But the truth is, these rescues are happening because there's an amazing team that's doing it. I would love to be able to sit here and take credit for it and say, hey, all those 2,000, those are mine. But the truth is, there's this team of people laying down their life, um, and having a humility to say, what is the best way to get this rescue done? Who's the right person to do it? And partnering with governments requires a great deal of humility. I think sometimes you see this evil of trafficking, and you want to just kick in doors immediately, solve problems, but you have to build a coalition of people that can get this done. And it really requires humility. The other, I would say, is a good poker face. In the early days, I was working in a red light district with a man that was just awesome. He'd moved his family into this red light district. This place was just an epicenter for selling children. It was the most despicable place I'd seen at that time. And I would go in there and I'll be honest, I was super nervous and terrified. I have a background in martial arts and I have some law enforcement background, but man, when I walked into this town, it was like a Western, and every face would look at you and they were looking like they wanted to eat you alive. Um, it was just me and this guy. In the early days, I'd have my hand in my pocket and had a knife that had a blade out, just in case things went wrong. It was just the craziest town. And I just remember thinking, just don't break, like don't break. Just don't show any fear or anything. And it was not like 4 years later that I was meeting with this guy that we used to walk in this town, and he would say to me, he said, "I used to look at your face because you weren't afraid." And I said, I used to look at your face because I thought you weren't the one that was afraid. When in fact, both of us were sitting there. We had a deep concern, but God was with us. And again, forgive me, I'm always going to tie this back to my faith, because if I think about the situations that I'm in and I look internally to say, do I have every skill set that is required to rescue this girl, to kick these guys' butts, to do all these things. If I look internally and I'm honest with myself, I do not have the skill sets. But if I say, God, do I believe personally that you created these young ladies, that you have a purpose for them, and it is not to be abused every night, and that you desire for them to be rescued and lived full lives? And I believe that. I have a conviction after all these years. I have this deep conviction that the God I'm following is a rescuing God. And so that gives me confidence, not because I look internally and say, I got everything it takes, but I say, I'm going to go with this crazy faith, believing that God is for me and he's going to provide what I need to make a difference in these young ladies' lives.
Dude, I love where that comes from for you. And I almost like when this comes out, I hardly ever listen to my own shows, but I'll be honest, I'll probably listen to this one and I might just hit like the go back 10-second button like over and over what you just said because that was really, really powerful. I love that. And I love where that comes from, like this protector and, you know, restoring somebody's life to something that's full and meaningful. And you do it from a place of, you know, from Christ, like what better place? I just, man, I just love that. Um, I want to move to just a different area for the interview, and that is, um, I'll be really honest, man. I'm about as green as it could possibly be when it comes to like this really, really dark world, you know. But I'll tell you, I'm vigilant in public. You know, I always have my head on a swivel.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have my eyeballs on my phone when I'm walking from my car and into the store and vice versa. I try to keep my phone in my pocket. I'm always like, it sounds kind of crazy because I don't have like a law enforcement background. I did do a lot of years of martial arts and that kind of thing, but I just feel like this over sense, this, I feel this protective, you know, bone in my body to always be on the lookout for a threat. But I'll tell you, even like gas stations and stuff like that, like I'll stand at the corner of my vehicle just so I can kind of like look around. I don't have, but I don't think that there's a lot of people out there that really understand like, hey, these tiny, tiny little tweaks in public when you have your kids around you or when you're by yourself or whatever else, like these are the things that you are in should like if you were to advise us on like when you're in public, man, these are non-negotiables. If you're protecting your wife, your kids, and everything else, these are the rules you follow. What are those?
Yeah. So I'm going to zoom it out a little bit further. I'm saying if you want to protect your wife and kids and create an environment and really to be a person that is making an impact on this trafficking issue, I would say number one, look internally, because there's issues of pornography and different things like that that have this like overlap with the trafficking industry, the exploitation of women. And so for me, I have to look internally to say, like, am I fighting trafficking, in these remote areas, yet in my personal life, consuming and objectifying women through pornography? And so I have to make sure I look internally and fight it as a man. That's something that, I try to have other men around me that want to live that lifestyle that we can encourage each other and fight that fight. The other thing is being a present father in your family. Holy cow, that is the number one protective thing because modeling what I would call godly masculinity, which is servant leadership, which is sacrificial love, modeling that for your kids and your family will attune them to what is safe and good behavior from a man. And unless they've experienced that from you as a father and in that safe environment of a family, that's when they become susceptible to maybe that someone that's trying to prey on them and use flattery or something like that. But unless my girls in my home, I want them to know what safe masculinity feels like, what it looks like, how I treat my wife, how I treat them, so that their radar is finely tuned to something that is off. And so I think that's one way that we can be protectors. I think something unique about trafficking in the U.S. in particular is the vast majority, I've seen different studies from 80% all the way up into the high 90%. The vast majority of victims of trafficking are coming through the foster care system and the group homes. And so really what this means is the most vulnerable kids to trafficking are those where parents are not present, or parents have advocated their authority, or parents have aren't stable enough to be a mom or a dad, or kids are abandoned. And so this is who is being preyed upon. Those that are trying to prey upon kids in the trafficking industry are not going to look for someone in a strong, stable family and a strong identity where there is a father and a protector present. That is such a headache for them, because there's going to be someone that is going to be looking for them, advocating for them. The horrible truth about trafficking in America is the reason why so many girls can be trafficked and no one is looking for them is because that's why they were trafficked in the first place. No one was watching out for them. These are kids that are running away from foster homes and group homes, ending up at bus stations, homeless shelters, and people are preying on that extreme vulnerability. And so I would say to protect your own family is to model masculinity for your kids.
Well, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but this topic really fires me up. Anyone who wants to hurt my kids, yeah, that's just not happening. And I'll tell you, today's interview with Clay will definitely fire us out. We're taking a quick time out here because presence for us dads means protection. And this applies to our kids' phones. If you've ever wondering how to keep them safe online without hovering or without being a helicopter parent, your next move is Bark. It's the tool that I recommend. It's the tool that my family has been using for the past 6 years. You can find everything that we're doing over there if you guys go to the dadedge.com/Bark. If you don't know what Bark is all about, here's what it does. Bark is an app. It's made by parents for parents to protect kids. It monitors text messages, emails, web searches, 30 plus social media platforms, and it'll alert you when it detects issues. Things like predators or cyberbullying, pornography, self-harm, drugs, violence, or medically concerning content, you name it. It's AI powered, so you're not going through every single message. You only get a ping when something needs your attention. You're also going to get simple reports and expert guidance through the app on how to talk to your kids through tough moments, which actually keeps that trust intact at home. But beyond monitoring, Bark also allows you to set screen time schedules. You can also block specific sites and apps. You can also use the location tracker for check-in, so you know exactly where they're at if they're out and about. If you want a clean start, if your kids have no devices, they just came out about a year ago with the Bark phone. This bakes in all the tamper-proof controls. It's an Android phone. It's great. My 11-year-old has it, and it gives me options like approving contacts. I can pause the internet searches if I want to. And for those little guys who aren't ready for a phone yet, my 9-year-old, not ready for a phone yet. I don't care if he's the last kid in his class to have one. The Bark Watch is a game changer. No internet searches, no apps, no nothing. The only thing that they can do on that is text. They can call you, and there's also location control, so you know where they're at all times. If you are the protector, which we are the protector. This is part of our job description. Let's equip our kids. Let's keep them safe. Head on over to the Dad Edge, thedadedge.com/Bark. You'll get 10% off of all their packages, even their phones and their watch. But I'll tell you, it is a game changer. All my kids have this. Like I said, my little guys, one has the watch, one has the Bark phone. It's awesome. You cannot go wrong. Let's continue to keep our kids safe, because as you guys are going to hear in the rest of this interview, it is some scary stuff out there. Scary, scary stuff. And we want to make sure that only the right people can get to our kids and not the wrong. All right, back to the show.
I think to protect those kids that are in trafficking, I would actually look up, what does my local group home look like? Could I be a mentor to see some young men and women there? Could I be a mentor there? Could I model masculinity even there? And although it doesn't look cool, and I can't say I'm the best anti-trafficker in my town, if you are a mentor, a foster parent, someone that's serving in your group home, I would say you are probably on the most cutting edge front lines to stopping trafficking in the U.S. if you are engaging in those things. And then what I'm suggesting isn't much different than what we do even overseas. You know, we have our rescue teams, we have the homes where the girls go, but we use that information to figure out where is the epicenter of these trafficking areas. And when we go into those areas, we find broken families, we find broken homes, we find drug addictions, we find gambling addictions, we find generations of sexual abuse. And so there isn't this clear program that you could just say, hey, stop being a drug addict, stop doing these things. It requires us to engage as mentors and as leaders and to rebuild families and rebuild communities from the ground up. And so for us, even as an anti-trafficking organization, we're partnering with churches and schools and sports programs to engage with these broken families and broken men and women and to try to model what masculinity looked like. So I know I just threw a bunch of stuff, but internally fighting our objectification of women and pornography. I think being a present father in our families, the number one protective thing we can do to attune our children's hearts to what is a safe man. The third thing is engaging with kids in the foster care system. But even for us on the ground overseas, we are engaging with families at a root level if we really want to see a difference.
Man. So it's really boils down to how we live our own life, right? And then the example that we set. I want to expand upon this just a little bit of how can fathers, everything you just said, right? I think that's the embodiment of what we need to be. At the same time, when we start to include our kids in like some of these conversations, like, I mean, I have like a 9-year-old, right? And
Yeah.
he doesn't really understand trafficking and kidnapping and that kind of thing, but I can really scare the crap out of that kid when I start to talk to him. And I start to be really honest with you, Clay, like I talk to him probably from more like, I would say this uneducated place of how I should talk to him.
Mm.
So how can we talk to our kids, without totally terrifying them, but also instilling some awareness and some responsibility? Like, what does
Yeah.
that balance look like?
Yeah. I'm going to share honestly because I think I'm learning this myself. Because there's this tension, right? Um, there's this beauty in us as fathers trying to prolong the innocence of childhood. Like we see our kids and they're looking at the world and they see it as a safe, beautiful place full of opportunities. And I think to myself, in all honesty, I think to myself that that should be a point of pride for us as parents, as husbands and fathers, and as couples, that we've created an environment where kids see the world as opportunities through eyes of innocence, through that everybody is safe. And so there's this part of me that's like, how long can I prolong that beautiful thing? And I think it's a fruit of wonderful parents. And then there's this responsibility of how do I also prepare them for some of the ugly realities of this world? Um, I wish I could say there's a prescriptive thing at these ages, do this, at these times, do that. Um, I personally, for my daughter, my oldest daughter, who's still 5, and again, she's coming and serving with us overseas, and what she knows at this point is that the way we tell her, this is the level of what we tell her. So we said there are some kids that don't have parents that know how to protect them well. And so our job, if we have the strength to do it and we have the time and we have the energy and the money to do it, our job is to lovingly step in and try to give them a wonderful home that they don't have. And that is enough context for her. And now I'll continue to do that layer by layer as we serve together. But the truth is, I wish I had a better answer, but I struggle with this myself of the the prolonging of innocence within our children and the structured bursting of that bubble at the right time. And I wish it was as easy as a here's step one, here's step two, here's step three. But I think we need to be engaged with our kids and how they're developing and know when it's the right time to say, I want to be the one that bursts this bubble. I don't want to be society the one that bursts this bubble. And so for me, I've been just trying to engage in conversations as my daughter asks me questions to try to give at just the right level. I would say there's some good trainings as they're going into school called good touch, bad touch, and helping them understand why do we feel different when we get a wonderful hug from our parents, but we might feel a little bit different when someone else tries to get us a hug. Um, my daughter, we were visiting my mom, who's in an old folks home. I forget the proper name of that. Maybe that's a derogatory term. But one of the people there had a memory issue and came up to my daughter and kissed her. My daughter had never met this man before, but he has some memory issues, and he just saw a young girl, and I don't know if he thought this is my grandchild or something, but came up to my daughter and kissed her on the lips. And so we had a conversation around that of like, how did that make you feel? And you could tell she felt uncomfortable around it. It made her feel shy. And so we embraced like, why did that make you feel that way when being around your parents doesn't make you feel that way, and being attuned to those feelings. And so I wish I had some better stuff, but I'll be honest, I'm trying to figure out that balance myself.
Wow. I'm sitting here thinking like, do your like alarm bells go off and intuition goes off and like you tackle this poor 85-year-old guy? I'm kidding. But I'm sure when you see something like that, you automatically like, like the eyebrows go up like, what are you doing? But yeah, probably, memory. But yeah, I like how you really interweave, these conversations around good touch, bad touch, having these, man, this sounds terrible. I haven't had those conversations with my sons, but I have four sons, but I'm sitting here thinking like, man, like I probably really missed the boat on that when we did talk to them about like inappropriate touching, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, but never like, hey, when your intuition goes off, when you're being touched by this person versus this person, like we've never had that conversation. So that's really, really good advice for you to share with us. I do have a question for you personally, though, if you're okay with it, because every man, no matter what we do for a living, right? We have 10,000 things that come our way. We have stress, we have overwhelm, we have burnout. 82% of men go to a job that they really don't like, that they feel unfulfilled. Your job is very, very different. There's high stakes rescue operations. You're also a dad, you're also a husband. How do you balance those two worlds without like just completely frying out?
Yeah. I've seen people write books that are kind of like you can have it all, just keep working harder. Um, I would say, to be honest, it's required a incredibly intentional prioritizing and saying no to a ton of stuff. Um, I don't have like if I look internally and say this is who I want to be as a child of God, this is how I want it to look, this is who I want to be as a husband, this is who I want to be as a father, this is who I want to be as a person leading this organization. As I think about how I visualize those and what it will take, I barely see much left over time. So I kind of ruthlessly prioritize important things, and I say no to a lot. I don't have a ton of frivolous friendships. I have a few deep friendships. I don't have a lot of hobbies. People are like, oh, you want to do golf? You want to do this? I do jujitsu every once in a while. I feel like it's good for my soul for someone to choke me out once a week and beat me up, and it humbles me, and I don't think about work that whole time. But other than that, I've had to really ruthlessly prioritize the things that matter to me. Um, I'm odd. I think the way I think about my life is trying to envision, and I don't say this in a macabre way, but I try to envision what my life will be when I die. What will people say of me, and to try to reverse engineer. So if this is who I want to be when I die and the legacy that I want to live, because I mean, really, people are going to say maybe just a few sentences about us. They're not going to remember all the subtle details. And so I say, if I hope to be a protector and a good father and all these things, so how do I reverse engineer my life? And I've had to be, even as my responsibilities increase, it just causes me to be more ruthless of saying, this thing that was kind of good in my life, it's not great And so I got to cut out even good things so that I can prioritize great things. And I wish I could say that's easy, but it's not. It's brutal. I want to paint a realistic picture that, yeah, I do anti-trafficking. I love my family, and then I get choked out once a week, and that's the fundamentals of my life.
Well, so yeah, I mean, the good thing about being choked out once a week is for those of your buddies who do want to play golf, if they start to beat up on you too bad in golf, you can always just like rear naked choke them when they're on the 10th hole or something like that. You could do
Sounds
that.
good. Getting the local paper.
I want to expand upon this just a little bit, to where, what's being talked about at the end of your life, what's being remembered. And if it, what are your kids like specifically? What are the girls saying about you in their 20s, 30s, 40s, about their dad?
Right. I think it's been interesting. Prior to kids, I what I imagined about the legacy I wanted to leave was more self-focused, to be honest, of like, this is who I want people to remember me as a man, legacy wise. And after having kids, and I think girls, I mean, they've softened areas of my heart that have gotten crusty from this work. I've been amazed that they've almost been like a miracle sent from God to just soften areas of my heart that I thought were long dead and long dormant because of the work that I do. But they've kind of revived certain areas of my heart. But as I picture what legacy looks like and what the future looks like, man, I've become a sap as I've had two young girls. What I picture is deep relationships with my adult children. I want to be an old man who has deep relationships with my daughters, that they love me and I love them. Um, uh, I, I had this, so it went from this like self-focused, like I want to die as this Valhalla hero, and this send off of like, wow, look how amazing Clayton is, and that diminishes the more and more I just focus on my family and my kids, and I say, I'd be happy to go away peacefully without a lot of attention, knowing that there's my daughters love me, and that there's this legacy of families all around the world of girls that would have been trafficked but now are with their own families, loving on their kids. Man, I mean, feel like myself getting choked up at that vision of just that I can set a course for young ladies that would have been a path of death and destruction and abuse, and set them on a course of freedom and having their own families, and that yeah, I don't know. These are the images of the end of my life that keep me motivated, where it used to be more you know self-focused. And so my girls have really in imagining my relationship to my girls, even as they get older, it really reshaped my lens of what is the legacy that I want to live and what feels meaningful to me.
I love that, man. I really, really love that. And I love the fact that somebody got a chance at life because of something you did for them, right? You were able to, and going back to what you said, living that full life, having that opportunity to do so. How can people help your organization? Like, what can people do to get involved, support it? Like, what
Yeah.
can our audience do? Because I know our audience, like we're majorly against this,
Awesome.
right?
Yeah. So I would so there's two like really quick easy ones. Um uh we have girls that are rescued, and they actually make products, t-shirts, so like the t-shirts I wear blank t-shirts. We have just blank t-shirts. We have design t-shirts, but those go support girls that are doing their job training. So we have you can find our apparel through aimapparel.com, or go to our website aimfree.org. You can partner with us financially. It is we need funds to do our rescue operations. We need funds to prosecute traffickers. It takes a lot of money to walk a rescued survivor through the process of healing so that they're ready to survive. And so, as I talk about what masculinity is, it is sacrificial leadership. And so that sacrifice is our time, it's our money, it's our talent, it's giving of ourselves towards something else. And so you might be led to financially partner with us. If you're part of a church, you can get your church involved. We've had churches come to help us repaint some of our facilities, do different things. And so we have this wonderful church partnerships that we do. But I would just say .org and partner with us. If you're a person of faith, you can join us in prayer. We would really appreciate that. But, we welcome any and all partnership.
I love that, man. Well, guys, you're not going to have to look hard to find Clay and all the links that he's talking about today. And if you want to go partner and support, what he is doing, please do so. If I know anything about, this tenure and these 10 years with our audience, the Dad Edge audience, these guys have no tolerance for trafficking or kids being taken advantage of. So I know for a fact we'll have guys who will financially support,
Awesome.
prayerfully support, all of those things. Guys, go to thedadedge.com/1393 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/1393 for this show. Let's all go support Clay in some way, shape, or form, whether that's giving, $1 of your money, giving $1,000 of your money, whatever that is, giving prayer if you don't have money to give. I know I'll be praying. Because let's face the fact. I mean, none of our children, we would not want any of our children or not one kid that we even know to be, caught up in something like this. And when you have like a guardian angel like Clay and his team that are doing this good work in the world, we want to support those people. So again, go to thedadedge.com/1393. Clay, thank you so much for this. I was going to say thank you for the show, but thank you for this work that you're doing. Thank you for you. Thank you for the 2,000 kids that you have rescued. Thank you for the hundreds that you've put away. And, I'm excited to continue to follow you, continue to support you, and just see like what good things God has planned for you in this organization. So thank you for fighting this evil for us.
Thank you, Larry. You're the man. You're too kind.
Appreciate you. Again, guys, thedadedge.com/1393. Gentlemen, go out, live legendary, and continue to protect your kids. Take care.